Okay, we're continuing with the book here, The Holy Grail of Wisdom, quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're going in alphabetical order. Letter H, Thomas Hobbes, lived 1588 to 1679. He said, all men, they fear a violent death. And this makes them anxious, makes them want to acquire power so they can protect themselves from a violent death. In effort to acquire power, they do cruelty, dishonest things, perhaps violence to others. That is why we need a Leviathan to protect ourselves. Okay, so he kind of reminds me a little bit of Hegel. I do think Thomas Hobbes is a bit of a jerk, but he's a pretty famous philosopher, so you should know some of his quotes. Liberty is the absence of impediments to motion. Yeah, you can do what you want without somebody hassling you. That's how it should be. The papacy is the ghost of the deceased Roman Empire sitting crowned on its grave. Okay, so he's a little bit, an Englishman. Not very pro-Catholic. Puritans, they stink, okay? All right, don't get me wrong. Thank God they found America, though. Thomas Hobbes, hell is truth seen too late. Yeah, it's sort of like, to be a scholar, hell is coming as the left destroys the United States and the West. But the other people, I saw it a long time ago. The other people, they still can barely see it. Thomas Hobbes, life in the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short. Humans are driven by a perpetual and restless desire for power. Okay, now that sounds like Nietzsche. A democracy is an aristocracy of orators. Yeah, well, like in ancient Greece, how well you could speak would determine to a large extent how prominent you were in their community. So it's a valuable skill. Same thing in ancient Rome. If any two men desire the same thing, which nevertheless they cannot share and both enjoy, they will become enemies. It is not wisdom, but authority that makes a law. Yeah, the law is designed, like Jerry Spence said, the great lawyer, to protect the rich, not to be fair to the poor. Curiosity is the lust of the mind. Yeah, if you're curious to learn, you can do that all day long, where you can only make the two beasts for a little while, and it comes with consequences. Thomas Hobbes, leisure is the mother of philosophy. Yeah, you got to have time in order to read and be a scholar. Not too many philosopher scholars coming out of poor populations. William Hocking, he lived from 1873 to 1966, a philosopher. He said, where men cannot freely convey their thoughts to one another, no other liberty is secure. Yeah, free speech is the requirement for other types of freedom. It's the beginning of individual freedom. Okay, next, Eric Hoffer. He lived from 1898 to 1983. That's a long life there. Okay, he was a manual labor dock worker who read a lot, and then he wrote a lot, including his book called The True Believer. Okay, he says, the creative mind is a playful mind. Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that working and joking and discussing a subject in a playful way, that leads to good ideas. Rudeness is the weak man's imitation of strength. Yeah, when you see somebody who's kind of rude and sort of inappropriately in your face or something, that's, they're a low-life scumbag, okay? So, yeah, you don't gain from that. If you read somebody like Machiavelli and stuff, he'll say, you don't insult your enemy because all you do is piss them off and you don't gain anything by it. So you don't want to be insulting anybody. Just be careful about it. I mean, you can playfully insult your friends and family for fun, but you got to be careful with that too, especially with women. Women take stuff more personally than guys do. For guys, you always insult your friends. It's normal. But for women, they get upset. Got to be careful. Eric Hoffer. Unless a man has the talents to make something of himself, freedom is an irksome burden. Yeah, most people, they get free time. What do? They sit around watching TV. Okay, but a person who wants to develop themselves, they start pursuing their goals. Eric Hoffer continues, discontent is at the root of the creative process. Human beings are at their creative best when they cannot have their way, and they must compensate for what they miss by realizing and cultivating their capacities and talents. Yeah, guy's got time on his hands, will do his hobby perhaps as an alternative. Like perhaps there was a doctor who was frustrated with conventional medicine. He might go on the internet and start teaching nutrition. Not that I know anybody like that. Eric Hoffer, you can discover what your enemy fears most by observing the means he uses to frighten you. Passionate hatred can give meaning and purpose to an empty life. Yeah, a lot of Evil, poor scumbag-like people, that's how they are. Just, they run on hatred. Anger is a prelude to courage. The only way to predict the future is to invent it, to have the power to shape the future. It is the around-the-corner type of hope that prompts people to action. It is distant hope that only acts as an opiate. I think it was Malcolm X, he said something like, anger gets people motivated, but sadness just makes them kind of give up. So anger is a more useful emotion if you want people to do something. Eric Hoffer, nothing so bolsters our self-confidence and reconciles us with ourselves as the continuous ability to create, to see things grow and develop under our hand day in and day out. The most effective way to silence our guilty conscience for having done something wrong is to convince ourselves that the people we did it to deserved it, that those we sinned against are indeed depraved creatures, deserving every punishment, even extermination. We cannot pity those we have wronged, nor can we be indifferent toward them, because we must hate and persecute them, or else we leave the door open to self-contempt. So what he's saying is, that's the first step in abusing a group of people, is to demonize them. You know, whenever you hear somebody trying to start a war, they always say, oh, this man on the other side of the boundary is a homicidal maniac, and we must preemptively stop him. So then you go and you abuse him, okay? So that's the way they justify it. And people use that, you know, like the Roman Empire. Oh, these Christians are evil. They don't worship the emperor. We must destroy them, okay? And they usually will hold to what they said, because otherwise they would feel bad. Okay, Eric Hoffer. The stability of a regime requires the allegiance of the intellectuals, and it is to win them rather than to foster self-sacrifice in the masses that a doctrine is made ineligible. Yeah, it's like the colleges are taken over by the left to make them loyal to the cow that's followed by the moon and the east as a way to control a place and bring back slavery. Man is eminently a storyteller. His search for a purpose or a cause or an ideal, a mission, and the like is largely a search for a plot and a pattern in the development of his own life story. When people are free to do as they please, they usually just imitate each other. Okay. To have a grievance is to have a purpose in life. Yeah, for some people, that's all they got. It's something to complain about. To become different from what we are, we must first have some awareness of what we are. Nothing is so invisible as an unpleasant truth. Though it is held before our eyes and pushed under our noses, rammed down our throats, we know it not. Yeah, I tried telling a dentist that a root canal is not sterile. Okay, they'll freak out. Eric Hoffer. So many people, they bite the hand that feeds them, but then they lick the boot that kicks them. Yeah. Like somebody who tells you MJ is good for your health. Eric Hoffer, the real Antichrist is the one who turns the wine of an original idea into the water of mediocrity. Yeah, like a lot of these journals, they won't publish a good idea, but they'll publish endless BS. Mass movements can rise and spread without a belief in God, but never without a belief in the devil. Okay, that's Eric Hoffer. That's all we got for today. I hope you found that helpful.